It's often said that people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad bosses. And wow, is that true? In fact, studies regularly show that a manager has more impact on an employee's mental health than their doctor or their therapist. Crazy, right? Well, welcome to today's explainer. Okay, let's dive into this, because we're going to unpack something that every single professional, manager, and team member grapples with. How do we actually build a workplace where teams truly thrive? We've all experienced the vast difference between good management and bad management. But today, we're looking at the concrete framework behind the good stuff. We're getting straight to the core of how managers can create an environment where people don't just clock in and clock out, but where they genuinely do their absolute best work.
Leadership is not about having all the answers. It is about creating an environment where your people can do their best work. This fundamentally challenges the old school view of the boss, doesn't it? For decades, the dominant corporate narrative was that the leader is the person at the very top of the pyramid who knows everything, dictates every move, and holds all the answers. But modern organizational research, it moves completely away from that top-down management style. Instead, we're stepping into the concept of environment building. Your primary function as a leader isn't to be the smartest person in the room. It's to cultivate the soil. It's about creating the exact conditions, the right atmosphere, the right resources, and the right trust, so that the incredibly talented people you hired can actually execute brilliantly.
So here's our agenda. We'll cover 1. Redefining true leadership. 2. The communication foundation. 3. Empowering through action. 4. Building a culture of integrity. And 5. Your leadership legacy. And hey, instead of just counting down a list of 10 principles today, we're actually going to logically construct this leadership ecosystem step by step.
Section 1. Redefining true leadership. This is where we fundamentally shift how you view your own role at work.
Leadership, a responsibility, not a position. So the crucial point is that true leadership is a heavy duty to your team, not just a fancy title on a door. Honestly, this shift is incredibly difficult for many new managers because it's just so easy to get caught up in the titles, the corner office, or where someone sits on the org chart. But the reality? When you accept a leadership role, you're taking on the weight of other people's well-being and growth. It ceases to be just a nameplate that grants you privileges. It becomes a daily, heavy duty to your team. You accept responsibility for the output and the professional trajectory of other human beings. That is a profound obligation, and it requires constant action.
Section 2. The communication foundation. Because an ecosystem absolutely cannot survive without clarity and trust. What people can handle, difficult news, versus what they struggle with, silence and uncertainty. And this brilliantly illustrates how teams actually crave over-communication. As managers, we often withhold information, right? We're afraid of upsetting the team. But people are incredibly resilient. They can handle difficult news. If there are budget cuts, a failed project, or a major client walks away, they can process that reality. What they absolutely struggle with, what breeds anxiety and destroys an environment, is silence and uncertainty. Think about the last time rumors of a company reorg spread like wildfire. The silence from upper management in those moments is almost always worse than the actual news. When people are left in the dark, fear just fills the void. So to build a great environment, everything has to be brought out into the light. You do not always need to have the answer. Sometimes your people need to know they have been heard. Now, here is a principle that goes completely against our natural instincts. When a team member comes in and they're frustrated, overwhelmed, or venting about a roadblock, the immediate instinct for most managers is to try and fix it. You want to solve the puzzle right then and there, but sometimes the most profound impact you can have is simply sitting back, giving them your full attention, and validating their experience. Often, people don't want a quick fix. They just desperately need to know they've been heard. It's about listening, listening, listening. Small behaviors build enormous trust. Do what you say, be on time, close the loop. Momentum and dependability come down to these highly actionable micro behaviors. It is that simple and that fast. Enormous trust isn't built in massive, sweeping, dramatic gestures. It's built in the daily, relentless execution of these tiny behaviors. You promise to send an email? Send it. A meeting starts at 9? Be there at 9. An issue gets resolved? Make sure you actually tell the person who originally raised it. Being timely and dependable every single time creates the absolute structural integrity of a healthy communication foundation.
Section 3. Empowering through action. Now we shift from how we talk to our teams to how we actively enable them. People support what they help create. Participation builds ownership. Now, what's really interesting about this is how involving your team organically generates buy-in.
Human psychology plays a massive role here. If leadership just hands down a mandate from on high, the best possible outcome you can ever hope for is mere compliance. But if you bring the team into the room, lay out the problem, and actually ask for their input, it's a total game changer. People naturally support what they help create. By allowing participation, you are literally building ownership within your environment. It becomes their plan, something they're deeply invested in seeing succeed, rather than just an order they're forced to follow.
Your job is to build capability, not create copies of yourself. When you trust and delegate tasks to your team members, here's a tough reality check. They probably won't do things exactly your way. And actually, that is perfectly okay. The goal here is to build capability, not create copies of yourself. If you micromanage every single detail just to match your exact working style, you end up stifling your team's growth. You ruin the exact environment you're trying to build. Empowering your team means trusting them to find their own unique path to the desired result.
Act with urgency. 1. See your team needs help. 2. Act immediately. 3. Refuse excuses like bureaucracy, hierarchy, or difficult stakeholders. But inevitably, your team is going to hit walls. When they do, you have to act with absolute urgency. A true leader has to be a bulldozer who clears roadblocks out of their team's way. Look at this sequence. See your team needs help, act immediately, and completely refuse excuses. Do not let company bureaucracy slow you down. Do not let rigid hierarchy stand in the way. And do not let difficult stakeholders become an excuse for why your team can't get their vital work done. When your people need help, you charge forward and you clear that roadblock immediately.
Section 4, building a culture of integrity. This is where we define the team's ethical compass. Be there for your people. Your team should never wonder whether you have their back, especially when things get difficult. This ethical compass relies heavily on showing up when it counts. Let's look at a micro scenario. Imagine a massive project has completely failed. A major client is furious, and the pressure on your department is at its absolute peak. This is the exact moment you must step in front of your team and offer unwavering, highly visible support. Your team should never, ever have to wonder if you have their back when the chips are down, because trust is incredibly fragile. If a manager throws their team under the bus the second things get difficult, that environment of safety they've spent months building shatters instantly.
A culture of honesty means people can speak openly, challenge respectfully, and know that doing the right thing is always valued. If they know you have their back, a culture of profound honesty and integrity can flourish. A truly thriving environment requires immense psychological safety. That means people can speak openly without fear of retaliation. It means they're actively encouraged to challenge ideas respectfully, even your ideas. To actually celebrate this kind of constructive pushback, it means when someone challenges you in a meeting, you don't get defensive. You genuinely thank them for the perspective. They need to know in their bones that doing the right thing will always be valued above just doing the easy thing.
Keep learning, stay curious, and never be afraid to say, "I do not know." Setting this standard requires true vulnerability. Keeping that curiosity alive and saying, "I do not know," isn't a weakness, it's a deeply human strength. Let's face it, it's entirely natural to face complex business challenges and not have every single answer on the spot. When you can look at your team and openly admit, "You know what, I don't know, let's figure this out together," it gives everyone else in the room permission to learn, to grow, and to just be human too.
Walk the talk. Your people watch what you do far more than what you say. Be the culture you want to build. Tying all of this together is the principle of walking the talk. An organization can print these principles on beautiful posters and hang them all over the office, but people watch what you do far more than what you say. You have to be a brand ambassador for your own values every single day. You want a culture of punctuality? You better be on time. You want a culture of honesty? You better be transparent. Your daily actions, your moods, and your habits dictate the absolute reality of the workplace for your team. You must be the culture you want to build.
Section 5, your leadership legacy. Let's move to and see how this builds into the overarching realization drawn from all 10 principles.
When your people think about working with you, do they feel supported, trusted, heard, and empowered? That isn't just a survey question. That is the true measure of the environment you have built. We've explored the responsibility, the communication, the empowerment, and the integrity required to build a place where people can actually do their best work. But ultimately, it all comes down to that one profound realization. That is the leadership legacy worth building. So, what legacy are you leaving for your team today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you to think on